The storm had begun at dusk, swallowing the city in white silence. Snow beat against the windows of Lena Carver's cafe like fists. The wind howled down the empty Chicago street, rattling the sign that read the hearth. Inside, only the hum of the refrigerator broke the stillness. Lena wiped the same counter for the 5th time. Her movements automatic. The register showed $42 for the day. The pipes groaned. The heater coughed warm air that barely reached her hands. "Just one more week," she murmured, staring at the rent notice pinned above the sink. She moved to lock up when a shadow flickered beyond the frosted glass. At first she thought it was a trick of the storm, until the shape staggered forward, unsteady, and collapsed against the door. Her heart lurched. "Hey, are you okay?" No answer, only the thud of a body hitting the step. Instinct overrode fear. She unlatched the door, and an icy blast slammed into her. Snow and darkness poured in around a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a soaked coat. He fell inside half-conscious. "God, you're freezing." Lena dragged him clear of the doorway, kicking it shut behind her. The man's skin felt like marble, his lips blue, his breathing shallow. She saw a glint of gold at his wrist, a heavy watch that didn't belong to anyone short on money. She hurried to switch the heater to its highest setting and fetched a blanket from the back. When she knelt beside him, his eyelids fluttered open. Eyes the color of dark coffee locked on hers. "You need to leave it locked," he rasped. "I'm not leaving you out there," she shot back. "You'll die." He tried to rise but winced, clutching his side. She saw dark stains spreading beneath his coat, blood or melted snow, she couldn't tell. "Sit still." She tugged off his gloves. His hands were scraped and raw. "What happened to you?" "Car broke down." His voice carried a faint accent. Italian maybe, though roughened by the cold. "Phone dead." Lena poured hot water into a mug and dropped in a tea bag. Steam curled between them. "Drink this." He obeyed, slow but steady. As color crept back into his cheeks, she studied him. Even half-frozen, there was something commanding about the way he sat. Back straight, jaw set, like he wasn't used to being weak. "What's your name?" she asked. "Dominic." She nodded. "I'm Lena. You're lucky I was still open." His eyes drifted toward the window where snow swirled in furious circles. "Luck has nothing to do with it." The way he said it sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the weather. They spoke little after that. She brought him soup, the only thing left simmering on the stove, and he ate in silence. When he finished, she led him to the small storage room at the back. "There's a cot," she said. "You can stay until the roads open." He hesitated in the doorway. "Why would you trust a stranger?" "Because you needed help." She folded her arms. "And I'm not cruel enough to turn you out into a blizzard." A faint smile curved his mouth, barely there but real. "You shouldn't be alone here, Lena Carver." "I've been alone for a while," she answered. The wind moaned outside. For a moment, he looked like he might argue, but exhaustion won. He sank onto the cot, still in his shirt sleeves. Lena pulled the blanket over him. "Get some rest." As she turned off the light, his voice drifted after her. Low, almost tender. "You have no idea what you've just done." By morning the world was buried. Snow reached halfway up the cafe windows. The streetlights glowed faintly beneath a sky of white. The city was silent, cut off. Lena brewed coffee and listened to the faint creaks of the building. She kept glancing toward the storage room door. Every few minutes, a voice in her head whispered that she might have let in trouble. When she finally opened the door, Dominic was sitting up. The blanket hung around his shoulders, his dark hair damp from melting snow. Without the coat, she saw that his clothes were expensive. Tailored trousers, a crisp shirt torn at the sleeve. "How are you feeling?" "Better." His voice was smoother now, steady but still hoarse. "You saved me. I just did what anyone would." "Not anyone." He looked at her in a way that made her forget what she'd meant to say. To hide it, she busied herself at the counter. "You can use the phone if you want." The lines might be back. He shook his head. No calls yet. That answer was too quick. Lena noticed the small details. The burn mark on his cuff, the faint bruise at his temple. Whoever Dominic was, he hadn't simply been stranded. She poured him coffee anyway. Milk, sugar, black. He drank slowly, gaze fixed on the swirling snow beyond the window. How long have you owned this place? 2 years. It was my grandmother's building. I turned it into a cafe after she passed. Family keeps you here. Memories mostly. He nodded as though he understood. Memories are dangerous. They make you hesitate when you should walk away. Lena frowned. That's a strange thing to say. I've had a strange life. The phone on the wall crackled and went dead again. The silence that followed felt heavy. You said your car broke down, she ventured. Where? He met her eyes. 6 blocks east. Don't go there. The warning was quiet but absolute. Why would I? She asked carefully. Because you're curious, he said, almost amused. But curiosity can kill faster than cold. A chill ran through her. She studied him. Broad shoulders, hands too steady for someone who'd nearly frozen. She pictured the stain on his coat, the half-hidden bruise, the watch that probably cost more than her month's rent. What exactly were you doing out in that storm, Dominic? He took another sip before answering. Trying to disappear for a while. Disappear from who? He smiled faintly. You ask good questions. You give bad answers. That earned a quiet laugh. Deep, unexpected, the first sound of warmth from him. You don't scare easily, do you, Lena Carver? I own a cafe in Chicago, she said. It takes more than a quiet man in an expensive coat to scare me. He tilted his head, studying her. Good. Keep that spirit. You'll need it. The words hung between them, and she didn't know if it was a compliment or a warning. The hours passed slowly. They played at normalcy. She cooked. He helped fix a leaking pipe beneath the sink. His hands were sure and practiced, not the hands of a businessman. She caught glimpses of a tattoo on his wrist before he pulled his sleeve down. At one point she caught him staring at the framed photo of her grandmother on the wall. She looks kind, he said. She was. She'd tell you not to trust strangers. She'd also tell me to feed them, Lena replied. That made him smile again, softer this time. By evening the storm had grown worse. The radio reported road closures and power outages across the city. They shared the last of the stew, sitting opposite each other at a corner table. You should sleep again, she said. You still look half dead. I'll manage. You're stubborn. So are you. Their eyes met across the table. For a moment the cafe felt smaller, the air thicker. The silence wasn't awkward. It was charged, something unspoken building between them. Lena looked away first. I'll get more firewood. When she came back, he was standing by the window, watching the snow like it might reveal something. The street outside was buried in white. You ever think about leaving? He asked. Chicago. Everything. She thought of the bills stacked on her counter, of the life that felt both safe and suffocating. Sometimes. But this place, it's all I have left of her. He nodded slowly. Then protect it. Don't let anyone take it from you. There was something in his tone that made her chest tighten. Dominic, she said quietly, whatever you're running from, does it end here? His jaw tightened. For a long moment he said nothing. Then softly. Nothing ever ends, Lena. It just waits for you to open the door again. The heater clicked off, plunging them into a hush broken only by the wind outside. Lena wrapped her arms around herself. He noticed and stepped closer, not touching but near enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. You shouldn't be near the window, he murmured. Storm like this can break glass. I'll take my chances. He smiled, and for the first time the expression reached his eyes. You're braver than you know. Something in the way he looked at her, like he was memorizing her face, made her breath catch. Get some rest, she said quickly. He inclined his head. "Good night, Lena." "Good night, Dominic." Later, when the cafe was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlight outside, Lena couldn't sleep. She heard him moving. Soft footsteps, the creak of the floor near the back door. Curiosity pulled her from bed. Through the crack of the kitchen door she saw him standing in the half-light, phone in hand, whispering in a language she didn't know. His posture was tense, alert. When he turned, the phone vanished into his pocket in one smooth motion. Their eyes met. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked quietly. "Neither could you," she replied. He hesitated, then walked toward her until only a few feet separated them. The storm outside howled. Inside, the air held its breath. "Thank you," he said at last, "for not asking too many questions." She swallowed. "You're welcome." He gave a small nod, then stepped back. "Go back to bed, Lena." She did, but long after she lay down, she could still feel the weight of his gaze and hear his voice under the storm's roar. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside the hearth, two strangers waited out the longest night of their lives, one hiding from the cold, the other from a truth she didn't yet understand. The snow had not stopped. By midnight it pressed against the windows like a living thing, howling around the corners of the building. The streetlights were gone, swallowed by white. Inside the cafe, the power flickered, dimmed, then came back again with a tired sigh. Lena stood at the counter, listening to the wind beat the walls. Across the room, Dominic sat at a corner table, a blanket around his shoulders and the same unreadable calm she had seen since he woke. He looked like a man carved from patience. "You should sleep," she said, trying to sound casual. He shook his head. "Can't." "You." She smiled faintly. "I tried. The storm's too loud." "Storms end," he murmured. "You just have to wait them out." Lightning flashed behind the snow clouds. The power went out again, this time for good. The hum of the heater died, leaving the cafe in blue darkness and sudden cold. Lena cursed softly. "Great. Just great. Where's your fuse box?" "Basement. But it's useless if the whole block's out." He stood anyway. "Show me." She grabbed a flashlight and led him down narrow steps. The air smelled of old wood and metal. He checked the breakers with a sure, practiced touch that didn't fit the story of a businessman whose car had broken down. "You've done this before," she said. "Electricity's the same in any house," he answered without looking at her. When the breakers refused to respond, he shrugged. "We'll manage without it." Back upstairs, she lit candles and placed them along the tables. The cafe glowed in soft amber light, shadows stretching long across the floor. Dominic watched her move. "You make it look like a sanctuary." "It used to be," she said. "For my grandmother. She fed half the neighborhood out of this place." "She taught you well." Lena smiled. "You sound sure of that." "I'm alive, aren't I?" The words landed heavier than a joke. She realized he meant them. For a while they sat in the candlelight, sharing quiet. The wind howled outside, but inside was a strange calm, like the eye of a storm. Then came a sound. Distant, muffled, almost lost beneath the wind. 3 short cracks, pop, pop, pop. Lena froze. "What was that?" "Fireworks," she said hopefully. No, Dominic's tone changed, low, sharp. "Stay here." Before she could protest, he was already at the window, pulling the curtain aside with 2 fingers. Through the blur of snow, she saw faint flashes, orange light in the distance. Then silence again. He turned back, face unreadable. "Nothing to worry about." "You don't believe that," she said. He looked at her for a long time. "You really don't scare easily, do you?" "Should I be scared?" His mouth tightened. "Not yet." He poured himself more coffee, cold now, and sat again. For a long time neither spoke. Finally she whispered, "Who are you running from, Dominic?" He met her eyes across the candlelight. "If I tell you, you can't unknow it. Then don't tell me. But stop lying." Something flickered in his gaze. Respect maybe. "Fair enough." The silence between them changed after that. He wasn't a stranded traveler anymore, and she wasn't just a kind stranger. There was knowledge forming between them, wordless but solid. Hours passed. They talked about small things, music, food, childhood stories, but beneath every word ran an undercurrent of tension neither wanted to name. When the wind finally eased near dawn, the cafe felt like a world apart from everything outside. Lena stood by the window watching the snow drift settle. "It's beautiful," she said. "Beautiful things can still kill you," he replied softly, standing behind her. She turned. He was closer than she'd thought. The candlelight caught the faint scar along his jaw, the shadow of exhaustion under his eyes. "You don't rest, do you?" she asked. "Rest is a luxury. Then take one night of luxury." For a heartbeat he looked as if he might say yes. Then he stepped back. "You should sleep. I'll keep watch." "Keep watch for what?" He hesitated. "Old habits." She almost asked more, but something in his tone stopped her. Instead she handed him a blanket. "Fine. Then at least stay warm while you watch." He accepted it with a small smile. "Yes, ma'am." When she finally drifted to sleep in the office chair, she dreamed of footsteps crunching through snow and a man's voice saying, "You have no idea what waits beyond that door." Morning came pale and silent. The storm had passed, leaving drifts that climbed halfway up the cafe windows. Sunlight glinted off the ice like broken glass. Lena woke with a stiff neck and the smell of coffee. Dominic stood by the counter, shirt sleeves rolled, making breakfast with the efficiency of someone used to giving orders even to a frying pan. "You cook too?" she asked. He looked over his shoulder. "Everyone should know how. You never know when you'll need to feed someone you owe." "Oh." He turned off the burner. "You saved my life. Debt like that doesn't vanish." "I don't want anything from you," she said, a little too quickly. He set a plate in front of her. "Eat anyway." The food was simple, eggs, toast, whatever was left in her fridge, but it tasted better than anything she'd eaten in weeks. While she ate, he checked the windows, the doors, the lock on the back alley entrance. He moved like a man expecting trouble. "You know," she said, "you're acting like someone who's done this before." "Done what?" "Hide." He glanced at her, one corner of his mouth lifting. "Maybe." "Are you a criminal, Dominic?" He stopped moving. "Would it matter if I were?" "It would depend on what kind." He laughed quietly. "You ask the most dangerous questions. And you never answer them. I'm alive because I don't." She sighed. "You're impossible." He studied her face for a long moment. "And you're honest. That's rarer than you think." Outside, the city began to stir under mountains of snow. Sirens wailed somewhere distant. "I should check the roof," Dominic said suddenly. "Too much weight up there could cave it in." She frowned. "You don't have to." But he was already climbing the ladder. She followed to the upper landing. The air bit at her cheeks. The whole world glittered white. Dominic shoveled carefully near the edges, every movement efficient. When he stopped to rest, she asked, "Why Chicago? If you were trying to disappear, there are easier places." He looked out over the silent city. "Because everything important happens here. Even the mistakes." The words sounded like confession. Back inside, Lena poured 2 fresh mugs of coffee. "You don't talk like an ordinary man," she said. "I'm not." The frankness of it surprised her. "Then who are you?" He hesitated, eyes on the swirling steam. "Once I was a son. Then I was a soldier. Now." He gave a short laugh. "Now I'm just cold." She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers before she could think better of it. His skin was warm now, rough where hers was smooth. "Everyone's something more than the worst thing they've done," she said quietly. He looked at their joined hands as if it were something fragile. "You shouldn't believe that about people like me. I'll decide what to believe." For a long moment neither moved. Then he turned his hand over, fingers brushing hers once, barely a touch. The bell above the door jingled suddenly. They both jumped. A courier pushed inside, cheeks red from the cold. "Morning. Deliveries are finally running again. Got a package for Carver." Lena blinked. "Me." He handed her a small brown envelope, unmarked except for her name. No return address. When she looked up, Dominic was tense again, shoulders rigid, eyes sharp. "Don't open that," he said quietly. "It's probably supplies." "It's not." Something in his tone made her hesitate. He took the envelope from her gently, weighed it in his hand, then tore one corner open with a practiced flick. Inside was a folded sheet of paper and a single bullet. Her stomach dropped. "What?" He read the note. His jaw hardened. Then he crumpled the paper and slipped both it and the bullet into his pocket. "What did it say?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Dominic." He stepped closer, eyes dark. "Listen to me. If anyone asks, you don't know me. You found me in the snow, you gave me tea, that's all." Fear flared quick and sharp. "You said I didn't need to worry." "You don't," he said softer now. "Because I won't let anything touch you." She swallowed. "You're scaring me. I'd rather scare you than see you hurt." For a second she thought he might leave, but instead he reached into his coat and pulled out a small white card with a single number embossed on it. "If you ever need me, anything at all, call this. Day or night. Don't say my name." She stared at it. "You think I'll need it?" "I hope you won't." Then, as suddenly as he'd appeared 2 nights before, he was gone, out the door and into the blinding white morning. Lena stood alone in the doorway watching him vanish down the street, black coat cutting a straight line through the snow. Only when he was a distant blur did she realize her hand was still clenched around the card. Later that day, by noon, the roads had begun to clear. City trucks rolled past, carving narrow paths between snowbanks. Customers trickled in, offering sympathy for her storm stay-in. Lena smiled and served them coffee, but her mind wasn't on the orders. She kept glancing at the window, half expecting to see him again. When she finally sat down that night, she unfolded the corner of the envelope Dominic had tried to destroy. A single word was still visible on the torn scrap that remained. Volano. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew it wasn't good. Outside, the snow glowed blue under the streetlight, calm and innocent. Inside, the hearth felt different, no longer just her cafe, but the place where a stranger had left shadows behind. Lena pressed the card between her palms. The embossed number caught the light. Whatever storm Dominic had brought with him, it wasn't over. And somehow she knew he would come back. The storm broke but left the city crippled. For a week, Chicago thawed inch by inch while plows clawed at the frozen streets. The hearth stayed quiet. Deliveries delayed, customers stranded at home. Lena told herself the silence felt peaceful. Didn't. Every sound outside, a car door, a footstep, made her glance up expecting to see him. Dominic. She still had his card. She had almost thrown it away twice, but each time her hand refused. Instead, she hid it in the small recipe box her grandmother had left her, between pumpkin pie and chili for 10. On the 3rd night, she dreamt of the blizzard again. Him collapsing through her door, his hand reaching for hers, his voice rough with warning. By the 7th day, she began to think he might never return, and maybe that was safest. The cafe's bell rang just after sunset. Lena looked up from wiping the counter. A single man in a thick coat entered, shaking snow from his boots. "Kitchen still open?" he asked. "Barely," she said, already reaching for a menu. He smiled politely, but something about his posture, the way his gaze scanned the corners before he sat, made her uneasy. He wasn't a regular. She poured him coffee. "Rough week." "You could say that." The man didn't remove his gloves. "Quiet place you have here. Good spot to meet people." Her stomach tightened. "I'm not expecting anyone." "I know," he said. His eyes lifted to hers, and in that instant she recognized the expression. Cold, watchful, dangerous. The bell rang again before she could respond. The door opened, letting in a gust of wind, and a tall figure in black stepped through. Dominic. He looked completely different. Rested, confident, the exhaustion of the blizzard replaced by controlled power. His coat fit perfectly, his shoes gleamed, his dark hair combed back. The first man stood instantly. "Sir." Dominic's tone was quiet but final. "Outside." The stranger obeyed, leaving a tip on the table before disappearing into the night. Lena's hand shook as she set down the coffee pot. "You scared me half to death." "I didn't mean to," Dominic said, his expression softening. "I just wanted to see how you were. You could have called." He looked down at the counter. "Calling you would have made it harder to stay away." Her pulse stumbled. "Stay away from what?" "From here. From you." Silence hung between them, heavy as snow. Finally she said, "Why were you gone?" "Business." He gave a humorless smile. "Complicated business. And the man who was just here, part of it?" "He works for me." Lena blinked. "He called you sir. Because he forgot I told him never to do that in front of you." She tried to laugh, but it caught in her throat. "You're not exactly what you said you were, are you?" He sighed. "No." The honesty surprised her more than anything else. "So who are you really?" she asked. He looked at her for a long time before answering. "Someone whose name you'd rather not know." She folded her arms. "Too late for that." Dominic's mouth quirked in something like a smile. "Then you'll learn soon enough." He reached into his coat and placed a folded envelope on the counter. "For the damage from that storm. The heater, the roof, whatever you need. I don't want your money. It's repayment, not charity." "Still no." He exhaled slowly, studying her face. "You're a stubborn woman, Lena Carver. Comes with the job." "Then let me help another way," he said. "I'll send people. They'll eat, they'll tip. You won't struggle again." "Why would you do that?" His gaze softened. "Because when the city turned its back on me, you opened your door." She looked at the envelope, then at him. "And if I say no?" "Then they'll come anyway," he said simply. She almost smiled despite herself. "You always get your way, don't you?" "Not always," he said quietly. "Not where it matters." They stood there, neither moving, until the kettle whistled behind her. She turned away to hide the confusion on her face. When she looked back, he was already leaving. "Dominic," she called. He paused at the door. "Don't disappear again." He gave a small nod, then was gone. It happened 3 nights later. The hearth's windows steamed from the heat of the ovens. Lena was restocking napkins when the air outside changed. First a vibration, then the low growl of engines. Headlights cut across the snow. 4 black SUVs slid to a stop along the curb. The cafe's bell chimed once. Then again. Then again. Men in dark suits filed in 6, then 10, then more. 20 in total. Each wore the same expression. Alert, unreadable. And at their center, walking with quiet assurance, was Dominic. He looked every inch the man the stranger from before had called sir. The air shifted around him, as if gravity had changed direction. Lena froze mid-step. Dominic approached the counter, smiling faintly. "I hope we're not interrupting." She had no words. "Back," he finished. "I told you I'd send people." The suited men spread out, filling every table. The other customers, mostly locals, exchanged wide-eyed looks. One couple left without finishing their coffee. Dominic noticed. "Don't worry. We're just here for lunch." "This isn't a private dining hall," she said, finding her voice. "Consider it a temporary reservation." His tone was polite, but there was no question of refusal. As she turned to fetch menus, she heard one of the older men murmur, "So this is the woman who kept our Dawn alive through that storm." The word Dawn hit her like a physical blow. She looked back at Dominic, the realization dawning. He nodded once. "Dominic Villano." The name wasn't unfamiliar. She'd heard it whispered in news reports, the kind of name associated with quiet power and missing people. He leaned on the counter, lowering his voice. Now you know. Her mind raced. Why tell me now? Because pretending would be insulting. Dominic, Don Villano, whatever you are, you shouldn't be here. And yet, here I am. He smiled slightly. Relax, Lena. We're paying customers. The rest of the hour passed in a blur. She moved from table to table, pouring coffee, pretending not to notice the murmured conversations, the way the men positioned themselves to face the exits. Every time she glanced toward the center table, Dominic's eyes were already on her. When the last of the dishes were cleared and the suited men began to leave, he stayed behind. You figured it out, he said when she approached. It wasn't hard. 20 men in suits don't exactly scream book club. He chuckled. Fair point. Should I be worried? Only if you ever stop making coffee. She crossed her arms. That's not funny. I'm not joking. My people, my family, owe you more than you realize. I don't want to owe anyone anything, she said. Then consider us even. He placed a thick stack of cash on the table. You pushed it back. Dominic. He cut her off gently. Don't argue. Take it for the food. For the quiet. Her protest faltered under his gaze. There was steel there, but also warmth she hadn't expected. Why me? She asked softly. You could eat anywhere. Because you didn't flinch when I was half dead on your floor. That's all. For now. He slipped on his gloves and stood. You'll see my men again. They like your cooking. Don't be alarmed. And you. I'll come when I can. She wanted to say more, to tell him she didn't want his protection, or that she didn't know what to do with the attention of a man like him, but the words tangled in her throat. Instead she said, You still owe me one thing. His brow lifted. What's that? The truth. He considered this, then smiled faintly. Soon. As he reached the door, the older man with silver hair paused beside her. For what it's worth, he said quietly, you did the impossible. You made our Don human for a week. Then they were gone, the SUVs rolling away in perfect formation. Outside, the snow had started again. Soft, harmless flakes drifting under the streetlights. Lena stood at the window long after the taillights vanished, her reflection pale in the glass. Inside her pocket, the card Dominic had given her seemed to burn against her skin. Later that night, the cafe was empty, chairs upturned, lights dim. Lena sat at a table staring at the untouched stack of bills Dominic had left. She had told herself she wanted quiet, safety, normal life. Yet when he walked in, her heart had leapt. Now she wasn't sure if it was excitement or fear. The radio murmured faint jazz from the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of wine, trying to think. Her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. A man's voice. Calm, formal. Ms. Carver. Mr. Villano asked me to tell you that the delivery for your heater repair will arrive tomorrow morning. You won't need to pay. She closed her eyes. I didn't ask him for that. Don doesn't take requests, ma'am. He gives gifts. The line went dead. Lena set the phone down, heart pounding. A gift. Or a claim. Outside, the snow thickened again, erasing tracks on the street until the world looked untouched. Clean, quiet, deceptively peaceful. Inside, Lena felt the storm beginning again. Only this time it was not outside her window. It was inside her chest, where danger and longing had learned to share the same space. 2 days passed before Dominic came back. Lena had almost convinced herself the last visit had been a strange dream, something she had imagined out of loneliness. But when the bell over the cafe door chimed that afternoon, she didn't have to look up to know it was him. The air itself seemed to notice. He wasn't in the heavy coat this time. A charcoal suit, black gloves, a simple scarf. The storm-stranded man she'd nursed was gone. In his place stood the one people whispered about on the news. Afternoon, he said easily, as if 20 suited men hadn't invaded her restaurant a few nights earlier. You don't need a reservation today, she asked. I cleared my schedule. He smiled. Thought I'd see if the coffee tastes different without a blizzard outside. She poured him a cup without answering. When she set it down, he reached for it, fingers brushing hers. Still hot, he murmured. You always manage warmth. Stop saying things like that, she said, pulling her hand back. People already think I'm mixed up in something. His eyes flicked toward the window. A black sedan idled at the curb. People see what they want to see. They see you, she countered. And when they do, they stop coming here. That's bad for business. He nodded once, expression unreadable. Then I'll fix that. How? You'll see. Later that week, a glossy magazine ran a short feature. Local cafe becomes hidden gem of Chicago dining scene. No mention of the Moretti family. Only glowing praise for the mysterious benefactor who revived the neighborhood's favorite spot. Customers returned. More of them dressed well, polite, generous with tips. None asked questions. Dominic's promise had been real. But the quiet between them wasn't. When he came, they spoke in half-truths that always circled the same point. One evening after closing, he stayed behind while she tallied receipts. You've been busy, he said. Business looks good. Miraculously. She shut the register with a sigh. Whatever you're doing, it's working. I just don't know what it will cost. He studied her a long time before answering. Everything costs something, Lena. Even kindness. I didn't ask for repayment. No, he said softly. And that's what makes it a debt I can't ignore. She met his gaze. You scare me sometimes. I should. The truth always does. She hesitated, then finally asked what she'd been holding back for days. What are you really, Dominic? Not the name people whisper. You. He looked down at his gloves, flexing his fingers as if deciding whether to remove them. Once, I thought I could be ordinary. A student, a son, a man who built things instead of breaking them. Then life made other choices. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give. He stood. But if you want to know who I am, watch what happens next. He left before she could ask what that meant. The next afternoon proved him right. At lunch, every table filled with men in suits again. Some familiar, others new. Their conversation was low but sharp, words sliding between English and Italian. Dominic arrived last, nodding to Lena before sitting at the far end. She brought coffee to his table, pretending not to notice the sudden silence that followed her. One of the older men smiled at her. You make this place comfortable, Signorina. Comfort's what we sell, she replied. Dominic's eyes glinted with amusement. You see, even business meetings sound better over her coffee. When the men finally left, the tips covered half the counter. Dominic lingered. Does that ease your worries? He asked. It proves you can move mountains if you want to, she said. And that scares me even more. He smiled faintly. You'd rather I were powerless. I'd rather know where I stand. He stepped closer. You stand in the only place in this city that feels real to me. Her breath caught. Dominic. Anthony. He corrected quietly. She blinked. What? My full name's Anthony Dominic Villano. The people who call me. Don't forget I was once just Anthony. He looked down at her, voice low. You never have. That night, the first snow in weeks began to fall again. Through the window it looked harmless, like memory repeating itself. Lena watched it drift and wondered what exactly she had invited back into her life. The next morning started calm and ordinary, at least until two men appeared at her door before sunrise. They weren't customers. Both wore black coats and identical expressions. Miss Carver? One asked. She nodded slowly. Mr. Villano asked us to inspect your locks and alarm system. Standard precaution. She wanted to protest, but they were already moving efficiently through the cafe, checking doors, installing a small device under the counter. When they left, she found a note taped to the espresso machine. Don't be afraid. A. For the rest of the day, she tried not to think about it. Customers came and went, unaware of the quiet transformation happening around them. By evening, she gave up pretending and called the number on Dominic's card. He answered on the first ring. "I told you not to call unless it was important," she finished. Was. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He arrived in 10. "Security," he explained, brushing snow from his shoulders. "You're part of my circle now, whether you meant to be or not. That makes you visible." "Visible to who?" "People I'd rather you never meet." She folded her arms. "And if I say I don't want guards? Then they'll watch from farther away." "Dominic, Anthony, this isn't normal." "Neither am I," he said simply. He walked behind the counter, studying the framed photograph of her grandmother. "You built something good here. I won't let anyone ruin it." "You can't promise that." "I can," he said. "And I will." She stared at him, torn between gratitude and anger. "Why does everything with you sound like both a threat and a favor?" He smiled slightly. "Because they're the same thing in my world." Later, when the crowd thinned, they sat at the corner table they seemed to have claimed as theirs. The lights were dim. Outside, flakes drifted lazily past the window. "Why the hearth?" she asked. "You could meet your men anywhere. Private clubs, hotels, why here?" "Because when I walk in here, I don't have to be Don Villano. I can be the man who nearly froze to death and woke up to the smell of soup." She looked down at her hands. That man was easier to talk to. "He's still here," he said quietly. "Just buried under obligations. And if those obligations put me in danger, then I'll remove the danger." The simplicity of his tone frightened her more than any threat could. 2 days later, trouble came. It started with a pair of strangers, rougher than the usual clientele, their clothes too casual, their eyes too sharp. They ordered coffee but didn't drink it. Instead, they watched everything. Lena pretended not to notice until one leaned forward. "This place has gotten popular," he said. "New management." "Same as always," she replied. "Funny. Heard different." He tapped the table. "Heard this joint belongs to a guy named Villano now." She felt her pulse in her throat. "You heard wrong." The man grinned. "Maybe." The bell above the door chimed again. Dominic walked in alone. The air shifted instantly. The two men went still, like wolves catching the scent of a lion. "Gentlemen," Dominic said calmly, "you seem lost." "We were just leaving," one muttered. They stood and slipped out, the bell jangling behind them. Dominic turned to Lena. "They spoke to you. They asked about you." He nodded, jaw tight. "Cardano's people. They test boundaries." "Cardano? Another family," he said. "Old rivals. They wanted to see if this place matters to me. Now they know." She set her jaw. "You can't keep using my cafe as your chessboard." "You're right," he said. "Which is why I'll post guards outside from now on." "Absolutely not." "Lena." "No." The word burst out of her. "I don't want your men at my door. I don't want to live under someone else's rules." For a long moment he said nothing. Then he stepped closer, voice low. "You saved my life. You think I can ignore that? If anything happens to you..." She cut him off. "Then I'll deal with it. Like I always have." His expression softened, the anger draining away to something weary. "You don't understand, Lena. My world doesn't forgive mistakes. You touched it the night you opened that door. Then maybe you should leave me out of it." He shook his head. "It's too late for that." They stood in silence, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Finally she sighed. "So what happens now?" "I'll send people to watch discreetly," he said. "You keep doing what you do. Serve coffee. Pretend nothing's changed. And you. I'll handle the Cardanos." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise." He reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the table, a small silver pendant engraved with a symbol she didn't recognize. "Keep this," he said. If anyone questions you, show it. They'll understand who protects you. I don't want protection. I know, he said quietly. But you have it anyway. Their eyes met, and for a moment all the distance between their worlds seemed to dissolve. You don't make things easy, she whispered. Neither do you. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. Lock up early tonight. Why? Because trouble doesn't knock. Then he was gone again, disappearing into the falling snow like a shadow the light couldn't hold. Lena locked the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. The pendant gleamed in her palm, cool and heavy. She thought of throwing it away, but she couldn't. Outside, the night pressed close against the glass, and somewhere beyond it, engines started. She looked at the empty tables, at the chair where Dominic had sat. The warmth he left behind felt dangerous now, like standing too close to a fire that might save or consume her. She whispered to the quiet cafe. What have I gotten myself into? No answer came, only the soft hiss of snow against the windows and the echo of a promise that felt too big for the small room to hold. A week passed after the Cardano men came. Snow melted into dirty rivers along the sidewalks, and Chicago looked gray again, ugly and real. Inside the hearth, business went on as usual, but Lena felt the difference. Two quiet men always sat by the window now, pretending to read newspapers while their eyes scanned every face that entered. Dominic had called them precautions. To her, they were reminders that her cafe had become something else, a lookout post in someone's private war. She tried to ignore it. She poured coffee, smiled at customers, and pretended the city outside wasn't whispering about her new connection to the Villano name. Yet each night she caught herself glancing at the door, half expecting him. He didn't come. On the sixth night she closed early, too restless to sit alone. She stepped out into the cold and started walking. Snowflakes floated in the air again, light but endless. She followed the streetlights until they blurred into a soft glow, her breath clouding the air. At the corner, a dark sedan slowed beside her. The window rolled down a few inches. Ms. Carver. Dominic's driver, a tall man she recognized, leaned toward her. The boss would like to see you. I didn't call him. He knows, the man said simply, opening the back door. Lena hesitated. Then she climbed in. Dominic's house sat on the lake's edge, hidden behind iron gates. The car stopped before a long stone walkway dusted with snow. Inside, the house glowed with warm light, fire in the hearth, polished wood floors, the faint smell of cedar and coffee. He was waiting in the living room, sleeves rolled up, jacket on the chair. You shouldn't wander alone at night, he said without turning. I wasn't wandering, she replied. I was thinking. About me. About what I've gotten myself into. He faced her then, eyes tired but sharp. You're safe. That's what matters. Am I? She asked. Because it doesn't feel that way. My cafe is under guard, strangers are watching me, and people whisper when I walk past. They'll stop whispering once they know you're untouchable. She frowned. Untouchable. Dominic, I don't want to be untouchable. I just want to be normal. He studied her for a moment, then said quietly. Normal was never an option after that night. She took a slow breath. Then maybe you should stay away from me. He stepped closer, stopping a few feet away. Do you want that? She couldn't answer. Her silence told him enough. He turned to the window, hands in his pockets. The Cardanos left another message yesterday. They think hurting you would hurt me. They're not wrong. Her heart skipped. What kind of message? A bullet through one of my car windows. Empty, but deliberate. And you're telling me not to worry. He looked back, the calm in his voice hiding something darker. Because I'm handling it. No one touches what's mine. The words made her shiver. I'm not yours. He took a step closer. You saved me. That ties you to me more tightly than you realize. Lena shook her head. That's not how saving people works. Maybe not for you. He smiled faintly, then softened. But I don't mean it as a prison. It's protection. Whether you believe that or not, you'll keep it. For a long time they said nothing. Then she asked quietly, "What will you do?" "What I must." The tone chilled her more than the wind outside. She turned toward the door. "I should go." "Lena." He stopped. "Lock the back door tonight," he said. "And keep the pendant on." "I already do." He nodded once. "Good. That means you're listening." The next morning she arrived at the cafe early. The front door showed a faint scratch across the glass, a single mark shaped like a letter C. She stared at it for a long time before calling the number on the card. "I told you to keep the pendant on," Dominic's voice said. "It's on." "That didn't stop them from scratching your rival's initial on my door." "I'll take care of it." "No, you'll make it worse," she snapped. "If you keep fighting like this, someone's going to get hurt, and it might be me." He was silent for a long time before answering. "Then you stay with me until it's over." "That's not a solution. It's the only one that keeps you breathing." She ended the call without answering, hands trembling. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too exposed. That night she didn't sleep. At dawn, a knock at the door startled her awake. When she opened it, one of Dominic's men stood there holding a folder. "From the dawn," he said. Inside was a note in Dominic's handwriting. "Leaving town for a few days. Don't open for strangers. I'll send my sister if anything changes." Lena traced the signature ADV, and wondered what kind of world required messages delivered by armed couriers. The next afternoon the hearth felt different. Sunlight cut across the floor. Customers talked and laughed. For a few hours she almost forgot the name Volano, until the door opened and the woman walked in. Tall, elegant coat of dark wool, black gloves. Her hair was glossy and pinned with silver. She moved with the calm of someone used to rooms falling silent. "Lena Carver?" the woman asked. "Yes. I'm Isabella Volano, Dominic's sister." Lena gestured to a table. "Coffee. Espresso. Straight." Isabella removed her gloves, showing a diamond ring that caught the light. "My brother told me about you." Lena poured the espresso, trying to sound casual. "All good things, I hope." "Depends on what you call good." Isabella stirred the drink without tasting it. "He said you saved his life." "He didn't mention that you keep tempting fate." "I didn't ask for any of this." "Neither did he," Isabella said softly. "But choices have consequences. Dominic sees you as his light in the dark. That makes you both a weakness and a weapon." Lena stiffened. "I'm not a weapon." Isabella's smile was faint but not unkind. "No, but others will see you that way. You need to decide how far you're willing to go before that matters." "I'm just trying to live my life." "Then do it wisely. My brother would burn this city to keep you safe." "He's done worse for less." The words sank in like cold water. "Why tell me this?" Lena asked. "Because someone has to." "He won't." Isabella finished her espresso and stood. "You've changed him already. I hope you know what that costs." Before Lena could reply, the woman was gone, leaving behind the faint scent of perfume and unease. That evening Lena closed early again. The sky was bruised purple, the lake gleaming steel gray beyond the rooftops. She sat by the window and replayed Isabella's words. Weakness and weapon. Dominic's world wasn't made for ordinary hearts. She could see that now. The bell over the door jingled once more. She looked up and there he was. Dominic looked worn, coat dusted with snow, tie loosened. "You met my sister. She doesn't waste time. She never does." He pulled off his gloves. "What did she say?" "That I should be careful. That you'd burn the city down for me." He gave a rueful smile. "She exaggerates." "Does she?" He hesitated. "Not entirely." Lena sighed. "Dominic, this can't go on like this. I can't live waiting for someone to scratch a letter on my door." He moved closer. "You think I want that for you? I think you live in a world that makes it inevitable." He was silent. Then quietly, I never asked to be born into that world. But I can choose how to use it. And you'd use it for me. For once, he said, I'd use it to protect something good. She looked up at him, caught between fear and something deeper. You can't protect everything. Maybe not. But I can try. The air between them was still. His hand rose as if to touch her face, then stopped halfway. Lena, he said, when this ends, whatever way it ends, I want you to remember that you brought me back. You made me feel human again. She whispered. And what if that humanity gets you killed? He smiled, tired and genuine. Then it was worth the risk. For a long time they stood in silence, the wind rattling the windows. Finally he stepped back. I have to finish this with Cardano, he said. After that, things will change. Promise. I don't make promises I can't keep. He reached for the door, paused, and looked over his shoulder. Keep the lights low tonight. I'll send word when it's done. Then he was gone again, swallowed by the street. When the last echo of his footsteps faded, Lena locked the door and leaned her forehead against the glass. Snow began to fall. Slow, quiet, endless. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, swallowed by the wind. She closed her eyes and whispered into the stillness. Come back alive, Anthony. No answer came. Only the snow kept falling, covering the city like a sheet drawn over something that was once alive and still refused to die. Snow returned to Chicago that night, quiet but relentless. Each flake spun in the wind like it was searching for a place to land. Lena watched from the cafe window, the lights dim, the sign outside swaying on its chain. It was close to midnight when she heard the familiar sound of a car slowing to a stop. The door opened. Dominic stepped in. He looked exhausted, tie undone, eyes darker than she had ever seen them. The storm must have followed him in. You're late, she said softly. I didn't want to come until it was done. Done. He took off his gloves and placed them on the counter. Cardano won't trouble you again. Something in his tone froze her. What did you do? What I had to. That's not an answer. He met her eyes. It's the only one you'll get. Silence stretched between them. Then he said quietly, You deserve the truth, at least part of it. He sat at one of the corner tables, the same spot he'd claimed since the first week. My father built the Volano name with blood. I inherited it young, too young. By the time I realized I didn't want the crown, it was welded to my skin. You could have walked away, Lena said. I tried once. People died because I hesitated. That's when I learned that in my world, mercy can kill faster than bullets. He rubbed a hand across his face. But then you opened that door. You didn't ask for names, debts, or sins. You just saved me. Lena sat opposite him. I only did what anyone decent would. He smiled faintly. Decent people usually lock the door first. The clock ticked above them, loud in the quiet. She reached across the table, hesitated, then placed her hand over his. His fingers curled around hers, rough and steady. I don't want you to carry this alone, she said. I've carried worse. You don't have to anymore. He looked at her like the idea was something he'd never considered. Hours passed. They talked until dawn, about his father, the first time he'd been forced to choose violence, the price of loyalty. About her grandmother, the cafe, the way she still dreamed of a life that didn't involve fear. Outside, morning light glowed over snowbanks. Inside, something fragile took shape between them, an understanding deeper than promises. When the clock struck 6, he stood. I have to go. The family expects me in 2 hours. Lena followed him to the door. Will there ever be a day when you're just Anthony again? He touched her cheek gently. If there is, it'll start here. The look in his eyes said everything words couldn't. She leaned toward him, and for the first time, the wall between them cracked. He kissed her once, slow and careful, as if memorizing the moment before it could be taken away. When they finally pulled apart, he said, You make me believe there's still a way back. Then take it. He smiled sadly. I wish it were that simple. Then he left, his figure swallowed by the pale morning. 3 nights later, Lena woke to a phone call that shattered the fragile calm. Ms. Carver. The voice belonged to one of Dominic's men. You should come. He's been hurt. The cafe was dark when she locked it behind her. Snow fell again, thin and sharp. The car waiting outside sped through empty streets until it reached a warehouse on the south side. Inside, heat radiated from industrial lamps. Men moved quietly, grim-faced. Dominic lay on a makeshift cot, shirt open, shoulder bandaged. He looked pale but alive. When he saw her, he managed a weak smile. I told them not to call you. Too bad, she said, kneeling beside him. What happened? An ambush. Cardano's last nephew tried to finish what his uncle started. She stared at the blood seeping through the bandage. You said it was over. It is now. You killed him. His silence was answer enough. Lena pressed her palms against her knees. You can't keep living like this. I don't know how else to live. Then learn. He laughed softly, wincing at the pain. You make it sound easy. It isn't. But it's possible. She hesitated. Come back to the cafe. Rest there. At least until you heal. He opened his eyes fully, searching her face. You'd let me. I already did once. He reached for her hand. Then maybe this time I'll stay awake long enough to deserve it. For the next few days, he stayed in the small room above the hearth. Lena cleaned his wounds, brewed tea, and tried not to notice the way he watched her when she thought he was asleep. Sometimes he woke shouting, caught in memories. She would sit beside him until the tremors faded. On the 4th night he said quietly, one of my men died that night. He had a wife, a little girl. I keep seeing her face. You did what you had to, she said. That doesn't make it right. No, Lena answered. But it makes you human. He smiled faintly. You keep saying that word like it's a gift. It is. They fell silent again. Outside, sirens wailed far away, and snow brushed the windows like whispers. A week later, Dominic insisted on going downstairs for dinner. The cafe was closed, lights low, a single candle between them. It's strange, he said. This place feels safer than my house. Maybe because you built that world from fear, she replied, and this one from kindness. He nodded. You sound like my sister. Is that good or bad? Both. He smiled. She told me to let you go. Why? Because she thinks loving me will destroy you. Lena looked at the flickering candle. Maybe. But it's too late to unlove someone. He looked at her for a long time. You shouldn't have to pay my debts. Then pay them by changing. He leaned back, studying her. You think redemption's that easy? No, she said. But it has to start somewhere. The sound of a phone broke the quiet. Dominic answered, listened. Then his expression hardened. They've taken one of mine. Lena's chest tightened. The Cardanos. No. Someone else. He stood wincing. There's always someone else. You can't go like this. He kissed her forehead once, sudden and fierce. I have to. This is my blood to answer for. Then he was gone into the night again, leaving the door swinging open behind him. Hours passed. The candle burned low. Lena sat alone, fear crawling beneath her skin. Every sound from the street made her flinch. Just before dawn, the door burst open. Dominic staggered in, coat torn, blood streaking his temple. She ran to him. Anthony! I'm fine. He tried to smile, failed. It's done. All of it. He collapsed onto a chair. She pressed a cloth to his head. What did you do? She whispered. I ended it. His voice was flat, empty. The last man who wanted war is gone. The rest will keep quiet. And the cost? He didn't answer. She knelt beside him. You're bleeding, you're haunted, and you think this is victory? It's survival. No, it's dying slowly. He looked at her then, really looked. Eyes hollow, shoulders heavy. Then tell me how to live. Lena reached for his hand. Start by staying. No more running, no more killing. Just stay. For a long moment he said nothing. Then softly, you'd really have me here after everything? Yes. He closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against hers. Then maybe there's hope for both of us. By morning, he was asleep in the small upstairs room again, breathing steady. Lena watched the first light slide across the snow. For the first time in weeks, the city felt quiet. Not safe, never safe, but still. She whispered into the hush. Let this be enough. Downstairs, the cafe sign creaked in the wind, and the smell of coffee began to fill the air again. For one fragile morning, life returned, ordinary, gentle, and real, while outside the world waited to see what kind of man the Don would be when he finally woke. It happened on a Tuesday night, when everything finally seemed calm. The hearth was full again. Students, workers, families. Laughter and coffee steam filled the room. For the first time in weeks, Lena almost believed life was normal. Dominic had stayed upstairs all afternoon, quiet, helping her restock the shelves and teasing her about her stubbornness. She was wiping the counter when she smelled it, smoke. Faint at first like burnt toast. Then came the shouts from outside. Fire! Lena ran to the door. Across the street, an abandoned delivery truck burned, flames licking the night sky. The smell of gasoline hit her next, sharp and wrong. Dominic appeared beside her, already pulling her back. Get everyone out, he said. What's happening? It's not an accident. Move! His voice snapped like command. Lena turned, shouting to the crowd. Everyone outside. Now! Panic rippled through the cafe as people scrambled. Dominic's men, two she'd barely noticed earlier, moved fast, herding customers to the back alley. Then she saw it. A shadow slipping past the window, the glint of metal in a gloved hand. Down! Dominic shouted, dragging her behind the counter. The front glass shattered a heartbeat later, bullets punching through wood and walls. Lena pressed her hands to her ears, heart hammering. Dominic crouched over her, calm and deadly focused. He signaled to one of his men with 2 fingers. The man nodded and slipped through the back door. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it began. Smoke thickened. Outside, the truck burned brighter. Sirens wailed in the distance. Dominic stood and checked the door. They're gone. What was that? Lena whispered. Cardano's loyalists, or someone worse. He grabbed her coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. We have to go before the cops arrive. I can't leave the cafe. You'll rebuild. He steered her through the back, past the narrow kitchen and out into the frozen alley. Snowflakes melted on her skin, the cold shocking after the heat of the flames. By the time they reached the car waiting at the corner, the entire front of the hearth glowed orange. Lena turned to watch her life burn. Everything's gone. Dominic's hand tightened on hers. Not everything. She shook her head, tears blurring the firelight. That place was all I had left of her. He looked at her, jaw hard. Then we'll make them pay for it. No, she snapped. Don't you see? That's what they want. You'll go after them, they'll come back stronger, and I'll lose you too. He didn't answer right away. The reflection of the fire danced in his eyes. Finally he said, I can't let them think they can touch what's mine. Dominic! He turned away, the muscles in his jaw flexing. Get her somewhere safe, he told his driver. I'll finish this. Lena grabbed his sleeve. If you walk into this war again, there won't be anything left to come back to. He looked down at her, voice low but steady. You once told me to find another way to live. This is it, protecting what matters. By burning more of the world. By ending the ones who started it. And with that, he was gone, into the chaos, into the fire and the snow, the storm that seemed to follow wherever he went. They took her to one of Dominic's safe houses, an old mansion on the edge of the city, guarded and silent. Lena couldn't sleep. She paced the wide halls, staring at the lake outside, black water under the moon. Somewhere in the distance, sirens echoed again, closer this time. At dawn, Isabella arrived. She was dressed in gray, her face composed as always. "I came as soon as I heard," she said. Lena turned on her. "Where is he?" "Handling it." "That's not an answer." Isabella sighed. "You don't understand what you've become to him. He won't stop until whoever did this is gone." "Then tell me how to stop him." "You can't." "I have to try." Isabella's expression softened for the first time. "He loves you, Lena. That's the only thing stronger than his hunger for power. But it also makes him reckless. I don't want his love if it kills him." "Then you'd better hope he finishes before it does." That evening, Lena sat by the window watching snow fall over the frozen lake. The phone rang once. "Lena," Dominic's voice said, hoarse and low. "Where are you?" "It's done." "You're hurt." "I'll live." "What about the hearth?" He hesitated. "Gone." "I'm sorry." She closed her eyes, tears spilling quietly. "I'll rebuild it," he said. "Better than before." "That's not the point," she whispered. "You can't keep fixing everything with power and blood. I don't know any other way." "Then learn," she said again. There was silence on the line, broken only by the soft hiss of falling snow. Then he said, "Maybe you can teach me." 2 weeks passed before Dominic returned. By then, the newspapers had already written their stories. Mysterious explosions, gang-related fires, police investigations that went nowhere. Lena read none of them. She spent her days helping Isabella's staff, cooking for the guards, trying not to think about the cafe sashes. But at night she dreamed of him, walking through fire, face unreadable, hands streaked red. When he finally appeared in the doorway of the mansion's sitting room, she almost didn't recognize him. His hair was shorter, his suit immaculate, but his eyes carried the same quiet storm. "You're supposed to be resting," she said. "So are you." She crossed her arms. "You burned half the city." He smiled faintly. "Only the part that needed cleaning." "That's not funny." "I wasn't joking." She shook her head. "Do you even hear yourself? This isn't justice. It's revenge." He met her gaze evenly. "To you maybe. To me it's balance. Balance doesn't bring back the dead." "No," he said softly. "But it stops the dying." She wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. Instead she sat beside him. "What now?" "Now I fix what's left." "By fixing, you mean rebuilding your empire." He looked at her. "By rebuilding yours." Before she could respond, he opened a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were architectural sketches. The hearth redesigned. Bigger, stronger, the same sign still above the door. "I bought the lot back," he said. "Construction starts next week." She stared at the papers. "You did all this." "It's your place," he said. "Always will be." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" He hesitated. "Because it's the only way I know to say I'm sorry." "For what?" "For bringing the fire to your door." Lena closed the folder, voice trembling. "You keep saying you'll protect me, but all you do is make me part of your war. Then tell me how to stop. Leave it all behind." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You really think I can just walk away? The name, the power, it doesn't vanish because I wish it. Then choose something else. Choose me." The words hung between them like a challenge. Dominic looked away, jaw tight. "If I choose you, everyone I've ever fought will see you as the target. I can't risk that." "Then you already chose them," she whispered. He flinched. Neither spoke for a long time. The clock ticked, the snow outside fell heavier, covering the world in white silence. Finally he said, "You think I don't want that life? I dream of it every night. But dreams don't survive in my world." "Then make a new world." He looked at her, eyes tired, as though she'd asked for the impossible. "I can't build peace out of blood." She stood. "Then maybe you should stop spilling it." He didn't follow her when she walked away. That night, Lena stood by the window again, watching the lake freeze over. Behind her, the mansion was silent except for the ticking clock in the hall. She remembered the first night he'd appeared. Half-frozen, helpless, human. Now he was everything she had feared and loved at once. The savior and the storm. Somewhere below, car doors slammed. She saw Dominic step into one of the black sedans, headlights cutting across the snow. He looked up once toward the window, as if he knew she was watching, then drove away. Days later, Isabella found her in the kitchen, kneading dough. He left for the East Coast, she said. Meetings with old allies. He'll be gone a while. Lena didn't look up. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't know how. Does he ever? Isabella gave a small smile. You're good for him. You make him remember he's human. Just don't let that destroy you. I'm not the one who's destroying, Lena said quietly. Isabella's gaze softened. No. But you're the only one who can stop him from finishing the job. That night, Lena found herself outside the ruins of the hearth. Snow covered the charred remains, softening the sharp edges of twisted metal and brick. She brushed away a layer of ice from the old sign, tracing the letters. In the quiet she whispered, "You're not lost. You're just waiting." The wind answered with a low hum, the kind that sounded almost like a heartbeat. She stood there until dawn, until the first light touched the ashes and made them glow gold. Somewhere far away, in another city, Dominic Villano stared at the same sunrise and thought of a woman who had once opened a door and changed the course of his life. The fire had burned nearly everything they knew, but beneath the ice, something still lived, waiting to rise again. Winter slowly loosened its grip on Chicago, but the chill never really left the city, or Lena. The hearth was rising again from the ashes. Workers hammered and sawed, turning the wreckage into something new. Every morning she brought coffee to the crew, ignoring the headlines that still whispered about the Villano fires. Dominic hadn't called for almost a month. She told herself it was better that way. Then, one afternoon, Isabella appeared again. "My brother is hosting a charity gala," she said. "For the hospital he rebuilt after the explosion." Lena folded her arms. "You mean the explosion he caused?" Isabella smiled thinly. "Redemption is always better with an audience. He'd like you there. I'm not part of that world. You became part of it the night you saved him." Lena looked at the construction site behind her. "Tell him I'm busy." But that night, a dress box appeared at her door. Black silk, simple but stunning. No note, just her name written in his hand. She stared at it for a long time before sighing. "You never take no for an answer, do you, Anthony?" The gala was held at the Palmer House, glittering beneath crystal chandeliers. Cameras flashed, reporters murmured. The city's rich and powerful floated through the ballroom like brightly dressed ghosts. Lena had never felt more out of place. Then she saw him. Dominic stood at the center of the room, surrounded by men in suits and women in jewels. Yet his eyes found her instantly, cutting through the crowd. For a moment, all the noise faded. He crossed to her, stopping just close enough for her to feel his warmth. "You came," he said quietly. "You left me no choice. I only sent an invitation. And a dress." He smiled slightly. "A suggestion." Lena rolled her eyes but couldn't stop the faint smile tugging at her lips. He offered his arm. "Dance with me." "I don't dance." "You did once," he murmured. "In the kitchen when the radio wouldn't stop playing." That memory made her chest tighten. She hesitated, then placed her hand on his arm. The band began to play, slow and low. He guided her effortlessly across the marble floor. People watched, whispered, but Dominic didn't seem to care. His attention was only on her. "Why bring me here?" she asked as they turned. "Because the world should see that I can stand beside something good without destroying it." "That's not how they'll see it," she warned. "I know. But I don't live for their eyes." For a heartbeat she believed him. Then she noticed the man near the bar, Thin, sharp suit, eyes cold. He was watching Dominic too closely. "Who's that?" she whispered. Dominic's gaze flicked over. "The last of the Cardanos who still breathes." "Then why is he here?" "To prove he's not afraid." "And are you?" "Not tonight." But Lena saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand tightened slightly on hers. When the song ended, Dominic led her off the floor and toward the balcony. The night air was cold, clean. The city glittered below them. "You shouldn't have come," he said finally. "You asked me to." "I wanted to see you," he admitted. "But now I've made you a target again." "Then stop standing in front of me. Maybe they'll forget I'm here." He turned, eyes dark with a mixture of frustration and affection. "You always think you can out-stubborn fate." "Maybe I can." He smiled then, small and real. "God, you're impossible." Before she could reply, a waiter stepped onto the balcony. "Mr. Villano, there's someone asking for you inside." Dominic nodded. "Go back to the ballroom," he told Lena. "Stay near Isabella." "Anthony, please." She obeyed, though every step away from him felt wrong. Minutes later, the first scream echoed through the hall. Lena spun. Glass shattered near the entrance, people shouting. Dominic's men surged forward. She caught sight of him in the chaos, dragging someone down, shouting orders. Security alarms blared. Within minutes the threat was gone, a single gunman disarmed and bleeding. But the look on Dominic's face was pure fury, not relief. When he reached her again he said only, "It was a message." "From who?" "I'll find out." "You can't fight everyone, Dominic." He looked down at her, eyes still burning. "Then I'll fight until there's no one left to send messages." Later, when the guests had fled and the ballroom was empty, Lena found him alone near the shattered window. "Are you all right?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then softly, "They aimed for you." "Not me." She stepped closer. "But they missed." "Not forever." He touched her cheek gently, voice raw. "You should leave the city." "I won't run." "Then stay close to me." She shook her head. "That's the same as running, just in circles." "Lena, stop." She took his hand from her face. "If you want me safe, then end this your way, but make sure it's the last time." He nodded once, and in his eyes she saw both promise and resignation. A week later, the city was quieter, almost peaceful. But Dominic knew peace in his world never lasted. He was right. It started with a missing shipment. Money gone, a man vanished. Then two of his oldest allies stopped answering calls. When Dominic finally traced the leak, it led straight to his inner circle. Someone had betrayed him. Lena learned about it the way she learned everything, with a half-truth. He came to the cafe, now half rebuilt, and stood by the doorway watching her sweep. "You shouldn't be here," she said without looking up. He smiled faintly. "That's what everyone tells me." She leaned on the broom. "You look tired." "There's a traitor in my house." Her heart skipped. "Who?" He hesitated. "Someone close." "And what will you do?" "Find him. Then decide if I still believe in mercy." "Please don't," she said softly. He looked at her, and for a moment the weight of his world showed in his eyes. "You make mercy sound like salvation." "It can be. Maybe for you." He stepped closer, brushed a strand of hair from her face. "For me, it's an invitation to die." She caught his hand before he could pull away. "Then promise me you'll come back from whatever you're about to do." He smiled sadly. "I always come back." He didn't come back the next night. Instead, Isabella arrived, face pale, eyes sharp. "He found the traitor." "Who?" "Franco," she said. "His oldest friend. The one who saved him years ago." Lena felt the room tilt. "What will he do?" "I don't know. But I think he wants you there." "Where?" Isabella handed her an address scribbled on a card. "He said you'd understand why." The address led to a warehouse by the river, half-lit and echoing. Inside, Dominic stood in front of a chair where a man was tied, bruised and silent. Lena froze at the door. "Anthony!" He turned, surprise flickering into something like relief. "You came. You asked me to." He nodded once, then looked back at the man. "He sold our routes to the remnants of Cardano's crew. 3 of my men are dead because of him." The man, Franco, lifted his head weakly. "I did it for peace, Don. I wanted out." Dominic's jaw clenched. "There's no peace in betrayal." Lena stepped forward. "Anthony, stop this. Killing him won't bring them back." He looked at her, eyes torn between rage and reason. "What would you have me do? Let him go? He'd come back with a knife in the dark. Then be better than him." The room held its breath. Finally Dominic lowered his gun. "Leave," he said to the man. "Run as far as you can. If I ever see you again, you die." Franco staggered out without a word. When the door slammed, Dominic turned away, shoulders shaking. Lena crossed to him. "You did the right thing. I did the weak thing." "No," she said. "You did the human thing." He laughed bitterly. "And that's what will get me killed. Then at least you'll die as the man I see, not the monster they made." He stared at her, then whispered, "You don't understand how dangerous love like that is." "I do," she said. "Because I feel it too." They stood there for a long moment, the cold river air seeping through the broken windows. Finally he said, "I have to send you away. Just until this settles. I'm not running. It's not running, it's surviving. Anthony." He caught her by the shoulders, eyes fierce. "Please. Go to Isabella's. 1 week. After that, I'll come for you." She saw the fear beneath his command and realized this wasn't just about safety. It was about him trying to protect the only piece of light left in his life. "Promise me," he said. She nodded slowly. 1 week. He let her go, breathing out as if releasing something heavy. When she reached the door, he called after her. "Lena." He turned. "If I don't come back, don't say that. Remember me like the night you found me. Before all this." She smiled sadly. "I could never forget that night." Then she stepped out into the falling snow. Hours later, Dominic stood alone in the warehouse, watching the snow slip through the cracks in the roof. His phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number. "You spared one. You won't be spared." He looked at the words for a long time, then whispered to the empty room. "Let them come." Outside, the river moved slow and dark, carrying the first flakes of another storm. The storm returned to Chicago with the same fury as the night Dominic first appeared at her door. Wind howled off the lake, snow cutting through the streets like knives. In Isabella's townhouse on the north side, Lena watched flakes slam against the windows and counted the hours since she had last heard from him. 7 days. The week he had promised. She hadn't slept. Every headline made her heart stop. Warehouse raid leaves 5 dead, Villano associates missing, mob truce collapses. Dominic's name never appeared, but she could feel his shadow in every line. Isabella entered quietly, a cup of tea in her hand. "You'll make yourself sick," she said. "I can't just sit here. You promised him you would." "I promised him a week. The week is over." Isabella sighed. "Then at least let me call one of his men. I'm done waiting for men with guns to tell me he's alive." Before Isabella could stop her, Lena grabbed her coat and the silver pendant from the table. "He said the storm started everything. Maybe it'll end in one too." The streets were almost empty. Snow swallowed sound and color alike, the city reduced to black, white, and fear. Lena followed instinct more than logic, her boots crunching through the drifts until she reached the river district. The warehouse lights burned through the snow. Figures moved inside, shadows pacing, shouting. She recognized one of Dominic's cars parked near the door, engine running. A gunshot cracked through the night. Lena ran. The front door hung open. Inside, chaos. Smoke and shouting, flashes of muzzle light. Dominic's men fought in the aisles between crates. The air reeked of gunpowder and cold metal. "Anthony!" she shouted. "Lena!" He appeared from the shadows, blood on his sleeve, eyes wild. "What are you doing here? You said a week. Get down!" He pulled her behind a stack of barrels as bullets tore through the air. She pressed her hands over her ears, heart pounding. Dominic fired back once, twice. Then silence. The last echo faded into the storm. When she looked up, 3 men lay still across the floor. Dominic dropped his gun, chest heaving. "It's over." "No," she said, shaking. "It never is." He turned to her, anger fading into disbelief. "You shouldn't have come. You think I could stay away while you die in another warehouse?" He tried to smile but winced instead, pressing a hand to his side. Blood soaked through his shirt. "Oh God," she whispered. "You're hit." "It's nothing. It's everything," she said, grabbing a strip of cloth from a crate. "Hold still." As she tied it around his ribs, his hands trembled against hers. "You always find me like this," he said softly. "Bleeding and unworthy. You're alive. That's enough." He leaned his forehead against hers. "You shouldn't love me, Lena." Too late. For a moment the world was only their breathing and the hiss of snow against the roof. Then another gun clicked behind them. "Step away from him." Lena froze. A man stood near the doorway. Tall, face pale with fury, gun steady. One of Franco's old allies, maybe. One last viper from the pit. Dominic pushed her behind him. "You don't want to do this." "Oh, I do," the man snarled. "You burned my brother alive. Then take it out on me." "I plan to." He fired. The sound tore through the room like thunder. Dominic stumbled back. The gun fell from his hand. Lena screamed, catching him as he dropped to his knees. The shooter aimed again, but before he could pull the trigger, another shot rang out from the doorway. The man jerked and fell. Isabella stood there, pistol still smoking. "I told you he'd need watching," she said, stepping inside. Lena cradled Dominic's head. "Stay awake. Anthony, look at me." His eyes fluttered open. "You always save me," he whispered. "Then stop making me do it." He tried to laugh but coughed instead, blood staining his lips. "You still owe me a life, remember? Then don't you dare take mine with you." Sirens wailed in the distance. Isabella knelt beside them. "Ambulance is on the way." Dominic shook his head weakly. "No hospitals. Too many eyes." "Then what?" Lena demanded. Isabella's gaze hardened. "We take him home." They drove through the storm in silence. Dominic drifted in and out, his head against Lena's shoulder. Each time his eyes closed, she whispered his name until he opened them again. At the mansion, doctors waited. Men Isabella trusted. They carried him inside, blood trailing across the marble floor. Lena followed until Isabella caught her arm. "Let them work," she said gently. Hours passed. Dawn came gray and colorless. Finally the door opened, and one of the doctors nodded. "He'll live." Lena's knees gave out in relief. Isabella caught her before she fell. When she entered the room, Dominic lay pale but breathing. Tubes and bandages, machines humming softly. He looked fragile, younger. She sat beside him and took his hand. "You promised you'd come back," she whispered. His eyelids flickered. "Didn't I?" She laughed through tears. "Barely." He smiled faintly. "You keep me alive, Lena. That's all you've ever done. Then let me keep doing it. But no more wars, Anthony. No more debts." He nodded slowly. "No more." Outside, the storm began to break, snow falling slower, lighter. The world exhaled. Spring arrived almost unnoticed. The snow melted into the gutters. Birds returned to the park across the street. The hearth reopened. New walls, new windows, the same sign above the door. The first customer to step inside whispered, It's just like before. Lena smiled. That's the idea. Every table filled within days. She moved among the crowd, laughter in the air, the smell of bread and coffee chasing away winter's ghosts. Sometimes people asked about the man who had financed the rebuild. She just said, "A friend." Dominic hadn't left the mansion yet. Recovery was slow, but each night he called, voice softer now, changed. He talked about small things: gardens, music, the sound of the lake at dawn. Then one evening the bell over the cafe door rang, and there he was. No guards, no entourage. Just Dominic in a dark coat, still pale but standing tall. "You shouldn't be walking around," she said, half scolding, half smiling. "I needed to see what you built. I rebuilt what you destroyed." He nodded. "Then we're even." She laughed. "Sit down before you fall over." He obeyed, easing into the corner booth. "You kept it exactly the same. Some things shouldn't change." He looked around the room, eyes warm. "Neither should you." For a while they said nothing. The world outside the windows glowed with sunset. Finally he said, "I'm stepping back. The business, the name, it's Isabella's now. I'm done." Lena stared. "You mean it?" He nodded. "I'm tired of being the man everyone fears. I want to be the one you don't have to save anymore." Tears blurred her vision. "And what will you do instead?" He smiled. "Maybe learn how to make coffee properly." She laughed then, the sound bright and unguarded. "You'd burn the beans. Then you'll teach me." "I suppose I will." A week later, the cafe closed early for a private event. Friends, workers, even Isabella filled the room. Music played softly, and Dominic moved slowly but without pain. He stood near the counter and raised a glass. "To second chances," he said. "To surviving them," Isabella added. Lena watched him, pride swelling in her chest. When the toasts ended and the lights dimmed, he crossed to her. "Walk with me." They stepped outside into the cool night. Snowflakes, late, defiant, drifted through the air. The street was quiet, the same one where she had first found him, half frozen and broken. Dominic stopped under the old street lamp. "It was here," he said. "Right here you opened the door. I remember." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. Inside, a simple ring of silver and gold, the same colors as the pendant she still wore. "I'm not the man I was," he said. "But everything good left in him belongs to you. Will you have it?" Lena's breath caught. "Are you asking?" "I'm asking if you'll stay. Not as a secret, not as a debt, just as the woman who saved my life twice." Tears blurred her eyes again. "You don't make life easy, Anthony. I'm trying to make it honest." She smiled, the kind that reached her eyes this time. "Yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. Snow gathered on their hair, melting as it touched. "You know," she said, "it's snowing again. Seems fitting." "Why?" "Because the first time it snowed I found my life. The second time I almost lost it. And now—" He looked at her. "Now it's ours." They stood there until the flakes stopped falling, until the city lights glowed against the clouds like dawn. Months later, tourists wandering through the neighborhood spoke of the little cafe with the warm lights and the mysterious owner who always paid in cash. They said a man sometimes sat by the window, reading, his hand always reaching for the woman behind the counter when she passed. No one knew his name anymore. The world had already buried the stories of the Villano family beneath the snow of 100 new scandals. But sometimes, when the first winter flake fell, people swore they could see two figures standing outside the hearth, hands clasped, heads close, watching the snow with the quiet of those who had finally learned that love, like fire, can burn and still bring warmth if tended carefully. From strangers in a blizzard to lovers who defied fate, their story reminds us that sometimes love doesn't save you. It changes you. If you were swept into their world, if you saw yourself in their fire, their fear, or their fragile hope, then don't walk away yet. Click subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me again next week for another story where danger meets desire, and hearts break just to learn how to beat stronger. Until then, stay curious, stay brave. And never stop believing that even in the coldest places, love can still find its way.